This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
It's the Noon Report from Family Life, bringing a Christian worldview to what's happening in New York, Pennsylvania, across the country, and around the world. Weather with Kevin Williams, and faith-focused feature stories with the Family Life News team. Now, here's what's happening.
Let's make a deal. Good afternoon. Welcome to the broadcast. A lot of uncertainty still over the next move in the war with Iran. Peace talks are planned in Pakistan tomorrow as a fragile 2-week ceasefire nears its expiration date. CBS's Nancy Cordes gets us started from Washington.
Everything feels a little up in the air with both sides talking tough right now with this ceasefire about to end. President Trump is saying if there's no deal, quote, lots of bombs start going off.
Vice President J.D. Vance leading the U.S. delegation in Islamabad with the hopes of securing a deal that would wind down the war. Former Justice Department official Justin Fulcher.
Well, I think the next couple of days are absolutely critical. The ceasefire has, of course, been extremely strained since the beginning. I think Iran was testing President Trump's patience, waiting for the commitment at the last minute. I think they'll be there, but ultimately, it's going to be an interesting next couple of days for what happens in the Middle East.
Retired Navy SEAL Mike Surali is not holding out much hope for a breakthrough.
There's a high probability that nothing's going to come out of these peace talks. Iran has a history of reading any agreement like it's optional, and they've never negotiated or held true on any deal or agreement in good faith.
President Trump says it's unlikely he'll extend the ceasefire, which expires tomorrow evening. An alleged Iranian arms dealer was arrested over the weekend at Los Angeles International Airport. She's charged with attempting to prop up the regime militarily. The 44-year-old Iranian national accused of brokering the sale of millions of dollars worth of drones, bombs, and ammunition. She was taken into custody while trying to board a flight to Turkey. A search for answers underway south of the border after a mass shooting at a major Mexican tourist destination. A gunman opened fire at an historic pyramid near Mexico City. A Canadian tourist was killed, over a dozen others wounded. NBC's Priscilla Thompson.
The famed archaeological site remains closed as investigators continue to comb the scene, and officials now say that 6 Americans were among those injured in the attack.
The gunman fired multiple rounds as frightened tourists scrambled down the stone steps of the pyramid and jumped to safety. This tourist says he and a friend were injured in a 15-foot fall to the ground.
Once I figured out that it was an active shooter situation, I jumped off the ledge. We were thinking, let's get out of the line of vision of the shooter and essentially try to get down the pyramid as quickly as possible.
The shooter was armed with a handgun and knife. He took his own life after a brief exchange of gunfire with police. Where'd they go? Several of America's top scientists with access to the nation's top secrets have mysteriously died or disappeared. Fox's David Spunt.
Energy Secretary Chris Wright noting an intensifying probe taking place inside the halls of the Energy Department, War Department, and White House.
We haven't found anything alarming yet.
At least 11 scientists have been killed or have disappeared over the past 3 years.
Former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker.
There are 11 individuals. 5 of them went missing. 6 of them were dead. Of those 6, 2 of them were murdered.
All the missing or dead scientists had links to U.S. nuclear or space research programs. Voters in Virginia headed to the polls today to decide whether the state legislature can gerrymander congressional districts in favor of Democrats for the upcoming midterms. Former Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin calls the vote an unlawful attempt to overturn the will of the people.
This unconstitutional effort to try to gerrymander our state and literally steal the voices from millions of Virginians is wrong, and that's why we have to vote no.
If approved, today's referendum could help Democrats win 10 of Virginia's 11 congressional seats in November. The president's pick to head the Fed is sitting today for his confirmation hearing on Capitol Hill. Kevin Warsh answering tough questions before the Senate Banking Committee. Economist Joe Brusalis wonders if Warsh will be an independent voice on fiscal fiscal policy or a rubber stamp for the White House.
Is he going to be the head of an independent central bank that will set rates in the best interest of the economy, or is he a member of the Trump administration? He simply can't be both.
Warsh is tapped to replace current Fed head Jerome Powell, whose 4-year term expires in May. U.S. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer is stepping down to take a job in the private sector. She's under internal review for reportedly drinking on the job and having an affair with a member of her security team. Chavez DeRemer is the third cabinet member, all of them women, to depart during President Trump's second term. Close call near the Nashville airport over the weekend. The pilots of 2 Southwest jets had to scramble to avoid a mid-air collision.
Southwest Flight 1152 to Knoxville was taking off from a parallel runway, heading directly towards Flight 507. Preliminary flight data appear to show Flight 1152 essentially flew right over Flight 507 with only around 500 feet of altitude between them.
Aviation expert Chris Van Cleve. Still to come on the Noon Report. For Tuesday, no budget deal in New York, taxpayer-funded abortions in Pennsylvania, and efforts to improve highway safety.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Williams. After a frosty cold start, milder weather is now moving into the area. I've got the numbers and the complete forecast up in 10.
All right, Kevin, we'll see you then. In the meantime, let's check the stories making news across New York and Pennsylvania. New York state lawmakers have passed a 5th budget extender as a deal to secure a final spending package remains elusive. This lawmaker drawing an analogy to baseball in describing the state of things in the state of New York.
Unfortunately, we have not started the game yet. There's a rain delay.
That's some rain delay in Albany. The $260+ billion state budget nearly a month late, and there's no end in sight to the stalemate. Still, Governor Hochul is optimistic a final deal will be struck soon.
I'm not done with it, but we should be pretty close to finalizing what we're all striving for.
Not so optimistic is Senate Minority Leader Rob Ortt.
I think we're looking at weeks still before there's a budget. They can't agree on how much more money to tax people and spend.
Immigration, auto insurance reform, and climate change legislation remain the key sticking points in the ongoing budget negotiations. Pennsylvania's Commonwealth Court has just overturned a ban on taxpayer-funded abortions. In this 4-3 ruling, the justices said that the Pennsylvania Constitution guarantees a right to so-called reproductive autonomy, and it will therefore force Medicaid to cover abortions in the Commonwealth. The Pennsylvania Family Institute calls this verdict judicial activism at its worst. An appeal is expected. Highway safety, a big deal this week in New York. For starters, it's Work Zone Awareness Week in the Empire State. DOT spokesman Brian Kelly.
Last year, we had hundreds of work zone incidents. Those resulted in scores of injuries and 2 fatalities. All too many, and it happens frequently, year after year.
State police will be setting up extra patrols all week long near highway construction zones, looking for speeders and distracted drivers. Jeff Scarlett is a highway construction worker in central New York.
Pay attention, give us room to work. We want to get home to our families as well. You know, it's not the safest place to be on the road, and we do appreciate when people slow down, move over.
In addition, the state's rolling out Operation Safe Stop this week. It's a public awareness effort in New York intended to keep kids safe on school buses. Michael Schreier is the police chief for the village of Camillus near Syracuse.
New York State, 55,000 vehicles pass stop school buses. So it's it's an ongoing problem that shouldn't really be a problem, but it is.
New York also launching this week its No Empty Chair campaign. That's designed to ensure that every student makes it to graduation without any traffic-related fatalities. A pair of Pennsylvania politicians is pushing for new protections for young people in the criminal justice system. Family Life's Brian Query has that story. New at noon.
State Representatives Liz Hanbidge and Emily Kincaid plan to introduce legislation that would largely ban housing juvenile suspects in adult correctional facilities. They say placing youth with adults can increase the risk of victimization and suicide, and argue juvenile facilities are better equipped to provide age-appropriate education and rehabilitation. The proposal would still allow exceptions if a juvenile cannot be safely housed elsewhere. The lawmakers also want to require behavioral health screenings for youth before adjudication. Supporters say the goal is to better protect vulnerable teens while focusing on rehabilitation over punishment. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you, Brian. Nearly a dozen juveniles have been arrested and charged with stealing vehicles in western New York. Family Life's Dee Haley reports from our Buffalo newsroom.
New York State Police arrested 10 teens over this past weekend following 3 separate pursuits involving stolen vehicles in the area. The incidents involved multiple law enforcement agencies, including Buffalo Police and Amherst Police. The suspects range in age from 13 to 17 years old and have been charged with multiple offenses, including criminal possession of stolen property. Authorities say many of the juveniles arrested are repeat offenders. State police urge residents to lock vehicle doors. Officials say community awareness and prevention remain key as warmer weather approaches and car theft activity is expected to rise. Dee Haley, Family Life News.
Thank you very much, Dee. A systemic emergency. That's the current situation inside the walls of New York State prisons, according to a letter that was sent to the governor by the union representing prison guards. That union points to several recent incidents, including one inside Attica State Prison where an inmate attacked and injured a half dozen corrections officers. Republican State Senator George Borrello tells WKBW.
Right now, the governor has done literally nothing to make our prisons safer. The governor and my Democrat colleagues here in Albany are more concerned about the comfort of criminals than they are protecting the safety of the public and the people that work within these prisons.
Governor Hochul is under pressure to rein in the HALT Act, which limits the use of solitary confinement. A high school social studies teacher in Haverford, Pennsylvania, has just been named the 2026 National Teacher of the Year. 46-year-old Leon Smith tells CBS This Morning.
It just means everything. I just have so much reverence for the teaching profession, and it's just such an honor to be able to represent teachers all over the country and really stand on the shoulders of so many others that have come before me.
Smith spent his entire 25-year teaching career at Haverford High School, where he teaches advanced placement classes in U.S. history and African American studies. As the National Teacher of the Year, Smith will spend the next year promoting the pivotal role educators play in shaping the next generation. A rail car manufacturer in Hornell, New York, has announced a new scholarship program to support students at Alfred State College. The Alstom Corporation says its $50,000 endowment will help provide tuition assistance to 2- or 4-year students who pursue degrees in engineering. A massive fire has destroyed an Erie County, Pennsylvania business. Firefighters from 3 counties were called Monday afternoon to the Hensa stamping plant in downtown Corey. Deputy Fire Chief Chris Young telling Jet TV the blaze kept them on the scene for hours.
Pretty good size commercial fire. It's a machine shop, a lot of chemicals. Fire was burning probably for a little bit before we actually got here. A lot of smoke. Crews did a fantastic job, but unfortunately the building's a total loss.
3 firefighters suffered minor injuries battling the blaze. The mayor of Corey calls it a devastating loss for the community. Tops Friendly Market stores around the area are taking part in this weekend's National Prescription Drug Take Back Day. That will happen Saturday, April 23rd. The supermarket chain says customers can anonymously discard their unused, unwanted, or expired medications in clearly marked bins. Prescriptions will be accepted at any Tops pharmacy during regular business hours. Let's pause, talk sports next. It's the 2-minute drill on the Family Life Noon Report.
Good afternoon, I'm Randy Snavely. Bob, the Knicks could not hold on to a 12-point fourth-quarter lead. Atlanta's C.J. McCollum got hot at the end of the game, and the Hawks stunned New York 107-106. McCollum finished with 32 points as this series is now tied 1-1. Jalen Brunson led the Knicks. He had 29 points. Game 3 will be on Thursday in Atlanta. Elsewhere, the Cavs went up 2-0 in their series with Toronto beating them 115-105. In Denver, the T-Wolves came back from 19 points down, and they stunned the Nuggets 119-114. That series now one apiece. Let's go to hockey. The Flyers got outstanding goaltending from Dan Vladar. He stopped all 27 shots the Penguins fired at him. Philly shut out Pittsburgh 3-0. The Flyers are up 2-0. The Hurricanes edged Ottawa 3-2 in 2 overtimes. So Carolina is also up 2-0. Minnesota evened things up with Dallas at 1 apiece after doubling them up 4-2. And the Oilers won their opening match with the Ducks 4-3. To baseball, the Phillies' woes continue as they drop their 6th in a row, losing to the Cubs 5-1. Philadelphia's been outscored 42-10 during that losing streak. Boston outslugged Detroit 8-6. The Astros pounded the Guardians 9-2. Miami a 5-3 winner over the Cards. The Braves knocked off Washington 9-4. Baltimore 7, Kansas City 5. The Dodgers hammered the Rockies 12-3. Toronto 5, the Angels 2. And the Athletics were 6-4 winners over the Mariners. That is a look at sports.
All right, thank you, Randy. Still to come on the Noon Report. What next for the war in Iran? What happened to those scientists? And what makes America so great?
Welcome to Breakpoint, a daily look at an ever-changing culture through the lens of unchanging truth. For the Colson Center, I'm John Stonestreet. Randall Christopher Niles has been leveraging information technology to share the gospel, proclaim truth, counter lies for a few decades now. Through Got Questions and All About God, he has used the internet as a tool that points people to Christ. And recently, he tackled the question of AI. How he described both what it promises and its perils is something that every Christian needs to hear. Here's Randall Christopher Niles.
Every generation is shaped by its tools. Machines transformed society in the Industrial Revolution. Radios, movies, and TV centralized culture. The internet decentralized it. And following came smartphones with 24-hour access to the world, along with social media where identity and even truth itself became negotiable. Then in November 2022, a tool called ChatGPT was released to the public without fanfare. Within 5 days, it reached 1 million users. Within 2 months, over 100 million. Suddenly, artificial intelligence wasn't the science fiction predicted. It was personal. You could talk to it and watch it create. What followed was a global arms race, unmatched in history, with trillions of dollars in investments and energy demands rivaling small nations. The goal quickly went from AI that can plan and improve itself to disembodied intellects humans can no longer meaningfully comprehend, let alone control. The most powerful technologists and elites in human history are driving this arms race. But even they are reckoning with their own creations. Sam Altman of OpenAI said plainly that, quote, "We're past the event horizon. The takeoff has started. This changes the human story." AI builders project devastating job erasure, synthetic media indistinguishable from reality, AI companions replacing human relationships, and digital selves that outlive biological ones. For big tech elites, all of this is necessary. In the transhumanist dream, humanity merges with the machine to evolve our species beyond biological limits into a new golden age. But who is asking the more important and ancient question? What does this do to us? At this crossroads of the greatest societal revolution in human history, what do thoughtful humans do? The answer is not panic or withdrawal. It's formation. Throughout history, whenever civilizations faced upheaval, the wars, plagues, empires rising and falling, those who endured didn't do so by controlling the moment. They endured because they were rooted in faith, in truth, in practices that form resilient souls. For Christian families, this moment calls us not to loosen our grip, but to double down on faith that is lived, not outsourced, and on prayer, scripture, and worship. It calls us to double down on the belief that humans aren't accidents, nor data points, nor upgradable hardware. Human beings are the image bearers of a living God. And in the end, perhaps our greatest resistance in this AI age will not be protest, but presence. Being fully human, fully attentive, fully alive. Teaching our children to pray, work with their hands, read deeply, think clearly, love sacrificially, and know who they are before a machine tries to tell them.
Thanks, Randall. You can learn more about Got Questions by visiting gotquestions.org. And for more resources or to share this commentary with others, go to colsoncenter.org/radio.
Good stuff. Thank you, John. Let's head outside. Weather where you live with meteorologist Kevin Williams.
Here is your family life forecast. Our call for this afternoon, sun and clouds, milder than yesterday, high temps 50s. Mostly cloudy tonight with a shower or two, low temps 40s, not nearly as cold as last night. Tomorrow, some morning cloud cover across Pennsylvania with a shower, then clearing for sun. Elsewhere, partly sunny and mild. High temperatures, low 60s. Good deal of sunshine on Thursday. High temperatures in the 60s.
All right, Kevin, thank you kindly. This is the Noon Report on Family Life. I'm your host, Bob Price. Lots to get to Tuesday, April 21st. A lot of moving parts still in efforts to wind down the war with Iran. Peace talks in Pakistan still up in the air, even as a 2-week ceasefire expires tomorrow. Vice President J.D. Vance set to lead those negotiations in Islamabad, but Iran is still on standby. Will they show for the talk? Correspondent Bradley Blackburn.
President Trump insisted the Iranians will come to the negotiating table in a radio interview late Monday.
Now we have to get it done.
And if they don't,
they're going to see problems like they've never seen before.
Iran's parliamentary speaker warned, "We do not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats, and we have prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield."
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says it's to Iran's benefit to strike a deal soon.
We're on the brink of a deal. And if not, the president, as commander-in-chief, still has a number of options at his disposal that he's unafraid to use.
Iran is demanding the return of its cargo ship, which was seized earlier this week by the U.S. Navy for trying to sneak past a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. An investigation is underway into the deaths and disappearances of 11 scientists linked to nuclear or space research programs. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer.
It does appear that there's a high possibility that something sinister is taking place here. We've asked all those agencies, the Department of Energy, NASA, the Department of War, to all share information with us so that we can see if we can put it together and find any missing links to try to solve what's going on here, because it's very unlikely that this is a coincidence.
Highly unusual for sure. The scientists have all died or disappeared over the past 3 years. Voters in Virginia are headed to the polls today in a special election. They're deciding whether the state legislature can redraw congressional districts for upcoming elections.
What started in Texas and continued in California, Missouri, and North Carolina picks up today in Virginia, where voters are being asked to approve a temporary congressional map that would give Democrats control of 10 of the Commonwealth's 11 seats.
CBS's Ed O'Keefe. A new study out shows teenagers who use cannabis are more likely to exhibit symptoms of cognitive delay.
That's according to a study done at the University of California, San Diego School of Medicine. Researchers published their findings in Neuropsychopharmacology on April 20th. The study examined more than 11,000 adolescents as part of the largest ever long-term study of brain development in U.S. youth.
Tammy Trujillo reporting. Big tech tycoon Tim Cook is stepping down as Apple CEO after 15 years at the helm. Cook will transition to the role of executive chairman effective September 1st. Apple's annual profits under him quadrupled, mostly due to the wildly popular iPhone, the company now worth more than $4 trillion. Chaos, confusion, and gunfire at a cluster of ancient pyramids outside Mexico City. A gunman opened fire there yesterday. That tourist destination was visited by 2 million people last year. A Canadian woman was killed. Over a dozen tourists hurt. The gunman committed suicide. Every living former U.S. president is out today with a message about what makes America so great. This year marks the 250th anniversary history of our nation, and the ex-presidents are weighing in. Former President George W. Bush.
My message is consider yourself fortunate to be a part of a great nation. Study our history so you have a better sense for what the future will be like, and be a citizen, not a spectator.
Former President Joe Biden.
We're the most unique country in the world. The most unique country in the world in the sense that we really do think democracy is dictated by the rules of the Constitution.
Former President Barack Obama.
If we understand that part of this democratic project is to sort through our differences in peaceful, legal ways, then I'm confident that we're going to have another 250-year run that's going to be just as good.
And former President Bill Clinton.
My message is don't give up on America. We're the longest lasting, freely elected government in history. A lot of people didn't think we'd make it this long. I think it'd be a good thing if we made it longer.
All four former presidents were interviewed on the NBC Today show. The current president, Donald Trump, will be reading from the Bible tonight. The group Christians Engaged asked him to participate in the America Reads the Bible event, which is going on all this week at the National Museum of the Bible in our nation's capital. President Trump recorded his segment from the Oval Office. He's reading from 2 Chronicles this evening. Next at noon, Family Life News takes a deep dive into a controversial meme that was posted and then deleted by President Trump. The AI-generated image depicted the commander-in-chief as a Christ-like healer. Family Life Sarah Harnish gets reaction from Roger Patterson at Answers in Genesis. Here's some of their conversation.
What's your take on the president's picture?
So the concern that I raised is the reflection of President Trump's character in these recent events. There was a White House Easter lunch where his spiritual advisor, Paula White, and Robert Jeffress was there in the background, compared his political challenges to what Jesus experienced during his betrayal and crucifixion. Then this image was posted, and which I know he didn't make. He was posting it from someone else, but it clearly represents him as a Jesus figure, messianic figure. We saw some of this imagery going back to Obama, so this isn't anything new, people representing leaders in that way. But my concern is that he's surrounding himself with people who are propping up his own ideas. So rather than telling President Trump that he's just like Jesus and the way that he was betrayed and suffered is the same as Jesus, Paula White should be warning him against the sin of pride and pointing him to biblical examples like Herod being eaten by worms when he received the praise that God was only due, and King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel being humbled and turned into an animal for years because of his pride. Pride's a great sin that we all need to guard ourselves against, and I have to do that every day. In fact, we can take it right back to the garden. It was Adam and Eve's pride that made them desire to be like God, and that's where we need to be directing our thinking, battling against that core sin of pride.
Trump was asked to pull it down by House Speaker Mike Johnson. Do you think that was the right call?
Trump has the right to post whatever he wants, but we know that out of the overflow of the mouth, or in this case, in the tapping of the fingers, the heart speaks. This is a reminder. Everything lives forever on the internet. We can't hide from those things that we put out publicly, but a spiritual reality is we can't hide from God. God sees more than just what we post on the internet. He sees our hearts, our thoughts, and we need to walk humbly before Him. The key idea here is thinking of things in that frame of humility.
Trump has done an incredible amount of work for religious freedom, and yet we hold in the other hand this image likening him to Jesus Christ. As a Christian, how do you reconcile those two things?
First, we can acknowledge he claimed that wasn't what he saw, and we can't judge his motives. But we're all sinners with mixed motives and actions. We can be thankful when he does what's in line with Scripture, and we can mourn when he does the opposite. And we can find examples of both those things on both sides of the aisle. But we should be willing to speak out when we see the wrong, or to be able to listen to others who point out things we may miss or see differently. But as we have those discussions, we need to make sure that we're going back to the Bible as our standard of truth, not a political personality or a platform.
What's a good response if you agree with some of Trump's policies but don't agree with his personality or with his posts?
Best It's what we do with our friends, our church members, our families every day. We acknowledge the good that they do. And then when they do things that are sinful or crossing some line, we point those things out. We call them to repentance. That's how we live together in the body of Christ. So this shouldn't be different for us. We don't point them to do better and hold themselves up by their bootstraps, but to abide in Christ and imitate Christ. And that's where I think President Trump needs to be pointed to humility as a leader, willing to do what's best for others, not just propping up himself. And in the video, I referenced the humility passage in James 4. And if I had the chance to speak with President Trump, that would be my message, that he would, as James says, humble himself under God's mighty hand rather than seeking to exalt himself.
Learn more at AnswersInGenesis.org.
All right, thank you, Sarah. That was Roger Patterson at Answers in Genesis, and this is the Noon Report on Family Life.
Good afternoon. Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. On our midday weather map, we're looking at a sprawling area of high pressure centered near Philadelphia. This is what helped to generate the clear sky and the cold air last night, and a nice sunny start to the day today. That high is pushing offshore, southerly breezes beginning to warm us up, but also with increasing moisture aloft ahead of a warm front that could bring a few scattered showers by tonight. Our call for this afternoon, sun and clouds, milder than yesterday, high temps 50s. Mostly cloudy tonight with a shower or two, low temps 40s, not nearly as cold as last night. For tomorrow, some morning cloud cover across Pennsylvania with a shower, then clearing for sun. Elsewhere, partly sunny and mild. High temperatures, low 60s. Good deal of sunshine on Thursday. High temperatures in the 60s.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Finally at noon, the robots are getting better and faster, it would seem. A Chinese robot named Lightning won a half marathon on Sunday in Beijing. That event featured humanoid robots competing against real humans. It was the ultimate man versus machine scenario. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer was on the sidelines.
Even the human competitors are getting into it. Every time a robot runs past, they're all slowing down to take pictures and cheer them on.
Lightning completed the 13-mile race in 50 minutes and 26 seconds, and that beat the human world record by nearly 7 minutes. It's a big improvement, too, from last year when the fastest robot took 2 hours and 40 minutes to run that half marathon. And that's our world, the world we live in. Tuesday, the 21st of April, 2026. I'm Bob Price, Family Life News.
You've been listening to the Noon Report, heard weekdays on Family Life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.